Hey everybody, Tom Salemi of Device Talks. Welcome back to the Device Talks weekly podcast. I'm here with my enormous microphone. I hope you can hear me on this podcast and see me if you're watching this video. We've got an enormous episode for you. We're going to be speaking with Eric Fain. He's the CEO of a company called Procyrion. A little later in the podcast, Procyrion closed on a $57.7 million Series E funding. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about its device, Aortix, which is a percutaneous mechanical circulatory support device. I'm sure you've heard of those before. This one's a little bit different, though. We'll talk about their clinical trials. And, of course, Eric's career. He's a former senior leader at St. Jude, went back to his startup roots, and it was wonderful to connect with him about his story. Before that, we'll hear from Santosh Iyer of Active Surgical. He's leading a program that's kind of is in conjunction with Harvard for high school students in the Boston area, although I'm sure other students would be eligible as well, who have an interest in learning more about the Medtech industry. It's called Moonshot. You can go to Moonshot.school for more information. But our conversation centered a bit on the program, but also more broadly about how our industry is viewed by young people and perhaps things we can do to encourage new folks to enter the market. So I hope you'll enjoy that conversation and you have some ideas. Please do contribute to any discussions on social media about that. And, of course, you connect with Santosh Iyer, I-Y-E-R, at Active Surgical if you want to find out more information. But, of course, go to Moonshot.school for more information about that. Before we begin the episode, I want to remind you that Device Talks Boston is happening on May 1st and May 2nd at the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center. It's going to be a great 2 days. We're adding programming. We're adding networking opportunities. We'll be sending out emails explaining all of this and more. Go to boston.devicetalks.com. We had a great time last year. This is going to be twice as good, and I hope we'll see you there. Finally, please do register for our upcoming episode of Device Talks Tuesdays. It's happening on February 13th at 4 p.m., brought to you by PTI. It's going to be a great conversation about injection molding. So check that out. Light on the presentation, heavy on the conversation. So if you've got questions, bring them. You can watch live or you can watch on demand. Finally, personal note, I'm going to be off next week, the final 2 days of next week. I'm actually going to Purdue University to see a men's basketball game. I'm very excited to see my son and to see the Boilermakers in person. So I don't think we'll have an episode of Device Talks Weekly next week. Things may happen, fates may conspire, and a plump interview opportunity might land in my lap, and we'll get one together for you. But as of this time, I don't anticipate having a Device Talks Weekly episode out next week. But we'll see. We'll see. So if I don't talk to you next week, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. All right. With all of that being said, let's get this episode started. All right. You ready for this?
Ready.
Newmarker, how are you, sir?
Doing well. Back from LA, which was not sunny while I was there.
Well, you were in Anaheim, actually, right? Yeah, and I'm just,
It's
that's what
outside
people
of
always, people from Southern California always correct you on. Well, it's
That's
not
true.
exactly
Anaheim is
there. Yeah,
I was flying in and out of LAX, so I mean, it was close enough.
that is close enough. You
close
deserve
enough.
a medal for that.
Yeah.
So you and Jim Hammer had a lot of great coverage on LinkedIn, a lot of videos, a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
A lot of things posted, I'm sure, up on the news sites as well. So it was a productive week for you.
Yeah, it was a productive week. I mean, that show is just huge. I mean, you could just get lost in that place. I think the Device Talks events are better for overall networking. Maybe.
Personally,
me, I mean, a little biased, but
if I had to choose, being editorial director of Device Talks, I'd certainly choose Device Talks Boston, which is happening on May 1st and 2nd.
Don't miss it. No.
Boston Convention and Exhibition Center. But no, you guys had some great coverage on there, and I'm glad you met with a lot of our great sponsors, and
Absolutely.
it's always good to get their stories out there.
It was good to see the medical device industry supplier space is as vibrant as ever, and they're working on all kinds of really cool innovations.
Great. All right. Well, let us bring in our guest. We've got with us Santosh Iyer, and Santosh, you're with Active Surgical. What's your title there? I should have looked it up before we started talking.
Director of Strategic Marketing.
Okay, but I don't know, can we talk about what you're doing right now? You're actually in a bit of a break, right?
Yeah, I'm on parental leave right now, taking care of my son. So
yeah.
Oh, congrats!
Oh, thank you.
It's always a fun time. I don't miss it at all. But
is this your first kid?
Second kid.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, so I've been around block a few times. So
I've got 3. We have a 7-year-old, and then we ended up having 2 5-year-olds. So.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay, so you have
at
plenty.
the same time.
Yeah. Yes, Tom, we have twins. Yes.
Yes. So congratulations, Santosh, for that, and again, it's an exciting time. So enjoy it. They do grow up fast. You'll be attending college or taking them to college before you know it. I'll actually be heading out to see my older one end of next week. I'm going to go out to see a Purdue Boilermakers game. So that'll be fun.
Great.
Did it feel like he just went to college in a blink of an eye? Was it like I'm dropping this guy off at the bus stop, making sure he has his lunch money, and now he's off to college,
Yes and no. At the time when you're raising them, it seems like it takes forever, and then once they finally are out of the house, you're like, oh, all right, well, that seems like not so long ago, but. At no point during raising kids do you ever think God, this is just happening so quickly. Because
Tom, do you have new hobbies? Do you have new hobbies now? Are you building birdhouses? Or?
I need a hobby. I was actually mentioning that to my wife the other day. The only thing I think about laying in bed in the middle of the night when you're awake, is work. I'm like, I need to obsess about something else.
We should do a LinkedIn poll. Have people Tom needs a hobby now. We need to get.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to choose it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Anyway, Santosh. So we're actually here to talk about about Moonshot.
We tend to go off the rails here, Santosh. Sorry.
That's great.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about. First, just talk a bit about yourself. How did you find your way into the medtech industry? What drew you? Because you're kind of working to help others find their way here as well.
Yeah. So my interest was very much in robotics, and AI. Before AI was a thing, wasn't really even connected to the healthcare world when I was in high school. But there was this really interesting experience that I had in grade 10 where I saw this Johns Hopkins neurosurgeon who was using a robot for brain surgery. And that really changed the way I thought about using technology to help people in a much more direct way. And so I kind of stumbled onto medical devices and I said, hey, this is a really cool way to combine my passion for engineering to helping people. And so throughout the years, I've been in a variety of engineering and technical roles, and more recently pivoted more to commercial functions. And so that visceral experience is what I am trying to capture in Moonshot, because a lot of kids these days are seeing things like ChatGPT, all this cool AI stuff, autonomous vehicles. And what I want to open their minds to is to say, look, hey, you can take a lot of that and apply it to saving people's lives. And so that's what Moonshot's really about, is channeling that interest into an application where you can help people and giving that hands-on immersive learning for these kids to open their eyes.
Chris, did you have one of those moments of clarity with journalism? Was there a moment when you knew you wanted to get into writing? Or was it a gradual thing?
I think I had a big, I went to Ohio State, and, I think my biggest challenge was that every class I took, I was really fascinated in it. I just am fascinated by everything and learning everything. And there was just one really critical moment where I was just well, I should go into journalism. I could go find out about everything from all kinds of people, and plus there was one day I was sitting outside. I happened to be outside the journalism building at the campus, and some of the editors came out to hang out and chat. I was like, these are cool people. Like, I should get on the student newspaper.
Yeah, that's it. I had a experience similar to yours, Santosh. I took a program when I was in high school. We went to the Boston Herald once a week and toured the Boston Herald, saw the printing press and all that. And the day I stepped into that newsroom, and it was just like this wretched, dirty place with newspapers stacked everywhere, just people yelling and all this going on. And I was like, "This is great. I want to work at a place like this." I ultimately don't, but just the whole energy of journalism just kind of captured me and never let go. So
I'm sure at the Herald they were using the King's English around the room, right? They were right.
Oh, great stuff. So, all right, well, let's talk about Moonshot. So, the URL is Moonshot.school for anyone who wants to check it out. But Santosh, tell us a bit about what it is and what the program is trying to do.
Yeah, so really the program is there's a variety of sub-programs within the broader vision and mission, but broadly the program is, as I said before, try to inspire kids to get into biomedical engineering. Whether you're interested in medicine or engineering or computer science, all these fields interact in one way or another especially when you're treating patients. And so it's really to expose the kids to design thinking, to interdisciplinary team collaboration, give them that expert mentorship from the industry, and then also allow them to play these roles. So whether you're a data scientist or product manager or surgeon or mechanical engineer, really play that role out and really get a feel for what it's like to be that role as close as possible to the real thing. So, sort of cornerstone to the program is this Lego surgical robotics system, which is really mimicking a lot of the robotic endoluminal systems out there. And through that, we have a variety of clinical challenges that students get to do. So, this 2-week summer program that we launched last year with Harvard, that one is focused on lung cancer. And the Lego robot is not the end solution. It is their template. So rather than going and machining parts like you would in a traditional medical device setup where you have to go to a rapid prototyping place or get stuff manufactured, here you get a system right out of the bat. And then you can iterate on that extremely quickly. You can integrate endoscopic instrumentation and really figure out what is the optimal solution to solve the clinical challenge. In this case, it's diagnosing and treating. So what's really fascinating is when you don't have the same cognitive entrenchment that I guess a lot of us do being in this industry, kids are way more creative. They're not biased the same way. You see some really cool things. And so I'll give you an example. A kid figured out that, hey, by the way, we didn't tell him about Auris or DaVinci Ion, but he himself figured out a controller was the best way to control the system. And so he used ChatGPT to code it completely from scratch. He went to Target. Fantastic. He got a controller, and then boom, it worked. So that's the kind of creativity we unlock, and especially with generative AI, opportunities are endless because it's all coding. So I'm really excited to see, where this program goes. And actually, we're giving them a lot of things that really don't exist in the industry yet. So, with lung cancer treatment, normally you'd have to do that surgically. We're doing this endoscopically. Another version of the program we're launching is for endoscopic spine surgery. Spine surgery is still done through a microscope or done open. We're doing this endoscopically. So that is not even really well adopted yet. And how could you imagine doing that robotically? So we're really trying to push the envelope with a set of people that, on paper may not have the skills, but we give them that creativity. We give them that platform to build and showcase those solutions. And, all of this, by the way, from a parent perspective as well, we are teaching them real skills, right? So beyond design thinking, a lot of our courses also reemphasize concepts in physics. Wow. So, the spine surgery course, for example, is going to teach them some of the hardest concepts in AP Physics 1. And I don't know if all of you, ever had to take AP courses when you were in high school, but that's one of the most dreaded courses if you want to get into a STEM major. No one wants to do it, even if you want to do engineering. So we're taking that and we're putting it into this platform and making it more accessible, right? So we want to demystify. We want to encourage people to, if you're a doctor, get comfortable with the physics. If you're an engineer, get more comfortable with the biology, because oftentimes these people live in silos. And so that's really the intention behind, what Moonshot's doing. And a lot of amazing things have happened to date. I can't wait to see what's going to happen this summer.
I want to ask some broader questions in a minute, but just particulars. So I'm sure people are wondering how long a period are these? How many sessions are you running? Are they a week, a 2 week, longer? What are some of the details that people should know?
Yeah. So there's two flavors of Moonshot. There's Moonshot Foundations, which is really it's more introductory. This will focus on those AP Physics concepts, grade 9 and 10 primarily. Those are 1 week programs. I believe there are 5 sessions offered. And then Moonshot Visionaries is a 2 week program. It's only held once. And that's typically for grade 11 and 12 students who have some sort of background in coding or have done some sort of research or have an interest in pre-med. So that one is a lot more selective because, we want to make that one more like a challenge, getting industry people in and all of that. So, yep, that's the general kind of flavor of Moonshot.
I love how you're doing a combo of both engineering and biology, because that's one thing, I've been covering this industry now for, a dozen years. And that's one of the things that always surprised me would be going to Medtech conferences with engineers and people would be urging them to take biology classes, and that was a surprise for me that there are many engineers in the industry who, they're making medical devices, they need to make them work, but as far as they don't have a deep understanding of the biology.
Absolutely. We actually had a kid come last year who did FIRST robotics. He knew nothing about healthcare, but he saw a robot, he saw a Lego robot, he's like, I want to do that. And then now he's actually going more into the biomedical track because prior to this, he didn't even know he could apply his skills from FIRST in the healthcare space. So that's a really cool, testament to what this program is doing for these really bright kids.
I think that it really seems to me that the younger generations right now have a really good understanding of coding, but as far as getting your hands onto something and working with things, whenever there's something broken in my house and somebody shows up, they're usually my age and older. How do we get younger people to get interested in actually tinkering with things and actually working on physical things?
Absolutely. And one thing I will say is, at least for me, one of the challenges I saw when I was doing engineering is we often learn things like a textbook, today you're going to learn math. Today you're going to learn intro physics, then you're going to learn chemistry. But real life doesn't work that way. You see a problem and then you work backwards, right? So we're really trying to get kids to be more inquisitive and then learn those skills as they see problems and then sort of get all the supporting skills to master that. So I think that's a very different way of learning. And I think that's the future of education. It's going to be very problem-based, very hands-on. I think it's going to unlock a lot more in terms of retention as well. And by the way, everything in medical devices is that way. Everything in medical devices, that you start with the need and then you work backwards, right? You don't start with, I have a tool and then I have to find something. So
yeah, the worst moments in Medtech was when somebody look at this cool tech, it's it's cool, but what do we do with it, so
exactly
to find those needs. It almost reminds me of that line in there's a line in Oppenheimer that I really liked where it was just theory will only get you so far. It sounds like you got the theory, but you gotta actually figure out how to build it and serve a need.
So are there kids coming into the program, and are we seeing in a larger sense, are they coming in with an idea of biomed, of medtech? And you sort of addressed this earlier, but it is always amazes me, and I'm in Boston and you're in Boston, Chris, you're in Minnesota, that this industry doesn't have the same romance around the tech industry, because you can't start an app company and sell it for $1 million in 3 years and drive a nice car. I don't know why it doesn't have that, because it's the coolest industry out there, and I don't know why it doesn't capture the imagination and spirit of kids as much as it should. What's the attitude of the kids coming in? Are they going in aware of this industry existing, or are you opening some eyes with this program?
So a lot of them, actually, weirdly enough, come in because they want to do something with their technology background or interest or science background interest in medicine, but they don't really know how to connect those things. And a lot of them actually have personal experiences. So actually a vast majority of our kids that came in, unfortunately, had a relative or someone else that had cancer.
Oh, interesting.
So for them, it's a very personal story. So that, I think, was super interesting. And I think that personal story, really grounds them and says, how can I take what I have and help others so something like that doesn't happen again? So
that's great.
and yeah, by the time a lot of them walk out, especially the ones who are non-medical, they're like, wow, yeah, I didn't know that this is how I could apply my technical skills. And yeah, I mean, a lot of them, I do ask them, hey, are you gonna go to Tesla or Apple longer term? And they say like, hey, look, I mean, certainly it's an option, right? It's an option. I mean, even if they end up going to Tesla or Apple, I think still understanding how to impact people, I think is still powerful. And I think medical devices and industry tells you how to connect what you're doing from a technology perspective to help people. And so whether that's in climate change or whether, even if that's through tech, I think that philosophy is really important. I think in our industry, that's sort of built in by design.
Absolutely. No, and I'm speaking as the dad of an engineer who wants to go into aerospace, SpaceX, and all that stuff. But
yep.
I haven't given up hope yet. Chris, I'm in Minnesota in terms of, like, again, in Boston, there is certainly a large medtech industry, but I'm growing up when it was smaller then. But even now, I don't go to parties and people are like, oh, medical devices, I know what that is. It usually requires some explanation. Is it different in Minnesota? Does it have a firmer grasp of kind of the social consciousness there?
I think so, just because, I mean, like basically, like, even on my street, there's a Medtronic engineer on my street. My kid's soccer team, there's one of the other soccer dads is a Medtronic engineer. So, I mean, I think there's definitely, we have a lot of Fortune 500 companies around the Twin Cities, like much more for the size of the city, actually.
Sure.
But I mean, Medtronic is like one of the really big employers around here. And, Abbott and Boston Scientific have a lot of employees around here as well. In fact, there's more Boston Scientific employees here than in Massachusetts. But so I mean, just having that density, you get to run into a lot more people who work for the industry. But
the cough was a nice touch, Chris. I like that. Though. Yeah, that's very well played.
I mean, I love Massachusetts, but I gotta throw a little shade, right, man? I mean,
if I had shade to throw, believe me, it would have been thrown already. So don't. I appreciate. Respect for the shade thrown. So, Santosh, where do folks go from here? I mean, have we missed anything about the program? Anything else I should be asking? I think people should go to the website. Is it Moonshot.school? Is that the place?
Yeah, and then scroll all the way to the bottom, and you have to we actually offer this through Harvard Medical School, so you need to actually apply through Harvard Medical School. So if you go all the way to the bottom, you can just click there and you can apply. Yeah. So
enroll through our collaborator. So if I'm the parent of a high school kid and I'm wondering if my kid's a good fit, just to give us the profile once again. Who's a good fit for this?
Honestly, I think intellectual curiosity is the most important. We've had kids interested in art, design, engineering, medicine, and business, actually. We are not trying to go after some stereotypical profile. Even if you don't have a background in STEM, but you have an interest in STEM, we encourage you to apply because, again, I think the goal here is awareness. I think the main thing is demonstrated history of intellectual curiosity and really taking something and running with it. Because that's what's going to ultimately, that's the skill that's ultimately going to be transferable to Moonshot and, making the kids successful there.
And where are the classes or where are things physically held?
It's at Harvard Medical School. So it's going to be in the summer at Harvard Medical School. Yeah. So, we'll be right in the center of the campus and students will get to kind of walk in campus. We have a lot of really good research lab partners, industry partners that are collaborating with us. So.
And do you have any designs on scaling? If one of Chris's neighbors hears this and says, we need to have this in Minnesota.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the goal is to partner with universities that in cities that have a strong medical device or life sciences presence. So certainly, Minnesota, the Bay Area, San Diego, potentially even, in the South as well. So yeah, definitely broader goals for expanding.
All right. Fantastic. Well, it's great stuff. Again, the website is Moonshot.school, as it's spelled and as it sounds. It's a great program. I would have been a good fit for my son, but he's already in college. We'll see what the 14-year-old's at, but not there yet. We'll get him there. But
I feel bad that I'm not aware of it entirely, but I do know that the University of Minnesota, they've got a medtech engineering program. there. They have actually the business school has like a really great track program for people in the industry who want to go get an MBA and become leaders in the industry. I am going to go and look now, like what kind of fellowships are available around here in the medtech space, because if we don't have it here, and I'd be surprised if we didn't, we should.
Absolutely.
You only have 6 or 7 years before your oldest is going to be ready.
There we
Chris.
go.
Get
That's
cracking.
right.
He already says he wants to be an engineer. Now I got to maybe I should kind of just get him towards medtech. Like I need to take him to the Bakken
Right.
Museum soon or something.
Right.
So,
You can't push him. You can't push him, Chris. Let him
No,
find his
just let him find
his way.
Should I just leave pacemakers around the house or something?
Yeah, let him
There
find
you
his
go.
way and then guilt him when he's older. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Just pacemakers put bread on the table, though.
All right, Santosh. Thanks for
Real
sharing
pleasure.
these details.
Yeah, it was really great. Thank you both.
Well, Eric Fain, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
I'm anxious to hear Procyrion story. It's got a very interesting technology. I want to understand more about that and also find out a little bit about the financing you raised recently. I'm sure it was received, but it didn't just come to you. I'm sure you had to work hard for it. We want to get into that as well. But first, as always, we like to learn about our guests. Eric, how did you find your way to the medical device industry?
Yeah, it's a good story. So I been interested in medicine really just growing up and ended up going to medical school at Stanford, which brought me out to the West Coast, and was doing a lot of research while I was in medical school in cardiology, specifically in the electrophysiology field. And as I was moving through Stanford, ended up doing some research, worked with a cardiologist who's really a luminary in the electrophysiology field, Roger Winkle, who actually the very first patient with an implantable defibrillator. And there was a startup company called Venturetex that was being formed while I was, I guess, around my last year of school. And Roger was on the medical advisory board, and I got involved doing some research with them as well. And then when I finished medical school, I decided at the time I was going to just take 1 year off between medical school and starting my internship and residency, and work with Venturetex. And then once I got there and got involved with the technology on that side, I became really interested as an applied math major as an undergraduate, and all kind of fit in well. And I decided to step away from hands-on medicine and get involved on the medical device development side.
But your intention was to be a doctor going into all this? You wanted to be a physician?
Yeah, no, I had full intention to go through, finish my training, probably end up on the electrophysiology side. Needed to make that phone call to my mom and let her know I was
going to say, did you break your mother's heart?
No, she was, actually, everybody was really supportive. All the professors at Stanford, I mean, everybody saw it as an opportunity, and but it was, definitely a change in career paths, but worked out real well for me.
But it's an interesting time to do this. They're looking at the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, obviously there was a medical device industry, but it's not what it is today. What was the deciding factor that, you could have gone through a very stable and at the time lucrative career as a physician, and it's obviously still lucrative to a degree, or you can gamble on this industry, this nascent industry that's growing? What was it? Was it the gadgetry? Was it the technical issues? What was it that lured you away from a seemingly more secure path into medicine?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of just the technology really piqued my interest and was a way to really think about helping patients, but on a broader scale than what I could do just on a one-on-one basis, and really try to make a difference, because the devices that were being developed were really groundbreaking, really getting after huge unmet clinical needs. And the combination of the two really drew me to that.
And you were at Venturetex for 10 years. The jobs you have listed on LinkedIn, maybe there are more, but you had manager of clinical research and then VP of systems development. What was that process like? Are those kind of glorified titles and you were doing a little bit of everything, or were these very specific tasks that you had at hand?
Yeah, it was a small startup, and so wore a lot of hats, but main focus was, in the beginning, was working to specify the device and do continued research there to get to a final design. And then it was really kind of building out to be able to build a system for usability. And then I had responsibilities for the field clinical engineering group that were the folks on the ground going into the hospitals, working with the physicians, developing study protocols and things like that. So really was just a combination of things that allowed me to wear a lot of different hats, and in fact allowed me to really learn about a wide range of skills to in terms of getting a startup to be successful.
Now, Venturetech would go on to be acquired by St. Jude in 97, and you were at St. Jude for a good long time after that. What was that transition like from the startup to the big company? Did you like the lifestyle of a larger medical device experience?
I'd say it grew on me. Let's put it that way. It was a big change. You have as a startup, especially a single product startup, you really have one team. Everybody's focused on the same thing. Everybody's going in the same direction. There's limited distractions with other outside influences and things. And, when you get to a big multinational company, it is very different, and people have different priorities and sometimes different agendas. But again, great learning experience. And St. Jude was a really great experience for me. The culture there was, even though it was a bigger company, really kept the innovation focus, really was able to stay agile, make decisions quickly. I really enjoyed it. It was great working with that team as well.
And you became president of two different businesses and ultimately a group president there. What was your path to leadership? And was it, again, something that you had designs on, that you wanted to lead a business, or did that grow in you as well? How did that path come to be?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, different people have different approaches to how they want to drive their career. For me, I never had like a predefined, in my own mind, predefined path to get to leadership. I was really interested in just learning about as many things as possible, taking on responsibilities as the opportunities presented themselves. So yeah, I was able to run the cardiac rhythm management division. We had acquired a neuromodulation business that existed as a separate division, and opportunity came up to take on that as well, that had a lot of crossover in terms of the technology itself, and then continued to just expand the responsibilities, eventually having responsibility over the full St. Jude portfolio. And along the way, just being able to work with a variety of people in all the disciplines that you would think in building a business. So whether it's manufacturing, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, HR, finance, all those things, being able to have the opportunity to be involved, take on things where I could contribute but not be the expert, really build the team and work with people and build that sort of culture and environment. Really was a great experience and got me well prepared, not only to be a leader at St. Jude, but also to go on to the next role as being CEO of a startup company.
I'm not a planned person either. I never really thought I'd be doing what I'm doing. And before that, didn't think I was doing that, would be doing that. But I think the advice given to most younger executives is have a plan, really kind of step by step, inch by inch. Do you, in advising young people, do you say, build a plan, have a plan? I didn't have a plan, but it worked out for me. Do you advise them to have a plan, or should we be giving blanket advice to all folks? Is it really just kind of a personal journey in a personal way?
To me, I think it's a personal thing. But one thing I do talk to people about, especially people that are coming up, is to really, you may be an engineer, or you may be a marketing person, or you may be a clinical person, or regulatory person. Really take the time as early as possible in your career, to really dive into another area of the business. Get out of your comfort zone, really expand your horizons. Because, as you go on, you will get sort of in deep in the area that you're in, and it'll be harder and harder to do that. You can go to meetings with a number of people in different disciplines, but until you really have are able to focus in those areas, have some responsibility, live in those people's shoes, know what they need to go through, that to me is the thing that I think is the most helpful.
Excellent. No, that's good advice. So let's talk about where you are now, CEO of Procyrion. You were part of the acquisition by Abbott of St. Jude. You stayed there, it seems, for, according to your LinkedIn profile, 7 months. I don't know if that's accurate or not. But did you know after that acquisition that you were going to be taking a next step to do something else, maybe becoming a startup CEO? What were your plans at the time of the acquisition? Or was it already kind of scripted that you weren't going to stick around?
Yeah, so at the time, I mean, St. Jude was a relatively large company. We had about 18,000 employees, now being acquired by Abbott, which was close to 100,000 employees. And they just, it was a different sort of time, and it gave me a chance with the acquisition to really think about getting back to roots of a startup company. And so was fortunate enough to be able to leave and, take another big risk. What I did was really just went out, talked to a number of people, was looking for some potential opportunities, talked to a bunch of people on the venture capital side as well. And through some of those conversations was asked to do due diligence on Procyrion from a potential investor that was looking at investing in the fundraising round that they were
Oh,
actively doing.
interesting.
So
Okay.
did that really, I had heard of Procyrion because at the time, back a few years earlier at St. Jude, we had acquired Aortix, which was an LVAD company, and we had looked at everything in the MCS space. And so I had heard of them. But digging in, I got really excited about not only the technology, but also because I was really involved in a number of the heart failure programs and technologies at St. Jude. Really interested in heart failure and saw both the very, very large unmet clinical need for these very difficult to treat heart failure patients, as well as, again, being really excited about the technology. I was asked by one of the board members after the due diligence if I'd be interested in joining. They were looking to bring in somebody who had more experience to take the company to the next level, and I was excited to do so.
Did it come as a surprise, or did you kind of do the due diligence thinking that, well, maybe, if this all checks out, this is something I won't want to be part of?
Yeah, I mean, I was really excited about the company itself, but hadn't really thought that there was that opportunity there. So it was a little bit of a surprise, but once that came up, things moved along pretty quickly because obviously I knew everything about the company through the due diligence and then was able to go meet the team and was really an easy decision for me.
That's great. This may be a question that I regret asking or delete if it doesn't work out, but what is like the number one thing you considered when taking this job? Would you advise others? Are you looking at the tech itself? Are you looking at the team? Are you looking at the market size? And I'm sure it's a combination of all three, but is there one thing that sits atop of the list?
Yeah, I think it really is a combination of the three. Going in when I was just looking at any possibility, the three things that made, were the top on my list were, one, is this something that is really going to be impactful to help patients as the baseline? I wasn't really interested in just doing something that was, sort of a new bell and whistle or a next iteration of something. So there's that. And then the technology itself, I wanted to make sure that it was something that would be truly innovative and interesting as well. And then the business opportunity is one that, especially as going into a startup where you're going to be needing to raise capital, you want to be able to know that you're going to have a good sized patient population that will be seen as being attractive.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's talk about Procyrion itself. Talk a bit about your product, the lead product, Aortix. It's identified as a percutaneous mechanical circulatory support device for use in multiple indications. What is it and how will it be used one day, you hope?
Yeah, like you said, the device has potential to treat a number of different indications, but the one that we are focused on today are patients who have acute decompensated heart failure who are admitted to the hospital. And these are patients who, when they come into the hospital, they are very, very fluid overloaded. So excess fluid in their lungs, in the lower limbs, swelling of their legs and feet, oftentimes also ascites, so fluid in the belly as well. And these patients come in and they really feel like essentially like they're drowning, and they have very much shortness of breath and are very, very sick, obviously. So today, although there's been lots of advancement in treating chronic heart failure patients, keeping them out of the hospital, either with drugs, with implantable monitors, CRT devices, there really haven't been any significant advancements in treating patients who get to that stage. And about 25% of the patients who are admitted to the hospital with acute decompensated heart failure, which also leads to worsening kidney function as well, or so-called cardiorenal syndrome. About 25% of these patients are not able to be successfully decongested and treated with standard of care therapy, which today is primarily intravenous high-dose diuretics and some other cardiac medications. So there's a large segment of these patients who are not able to be treated successfully, and eventually they're discharged from the hospital still congested, still fluid overloaded, and they have very, very poor outcomes, both in terms of rehospitalization for heart failure and also for death. 90 days, there'll be somewhere between a third and half the patients will either be hospitalized or dead. So that's the patient population and the indication that we're going after. And so the Aortix device is, as you say, it's a percutaneous pMCS device, which means that it can be implanted through a catheter-based procedure. The device itself is an entrainment pump. So it's a device that is basically implanted through the femoral artery in the groin by a catheter, and it's fed up, and it sits in between the heart and the kidneys in the descending aorta. And so unlike the other commercially available pMCS device, Impella, which sits in the heart itself in the left ventricle, the Aortix device specifically is designed to sit in the aorta to treat these cardiorenal patients so that it can have an effect on unloading the heart, having the heart need to work less hard to pump blood out, be more efficient that way, and then directly increasing perfusion to the kidneys so that the kidneys can produce more urine output and take off that excess fluid.
So is it performing a different function than Impella does, or is it the same?
It's in the same class, but it's really being used to treat patients with a different indication. Impella today is treating two other important indications. So high-risk PCI, so when patients are getting PCI procedures, a stent procedure, who are high risk, especially needing to maintain coronary perfusion. That's one big indication for them. And a second is cardiogenic shock, where you're not having enough blood coming out of the heart to support the regular systemic function in the head, the brain, other organs as well. So same, I'd say, class of patients, but a very different design, a different location, and going after really focused initially on very different indication for these heart failure patients who are unable to be decongested when they're admitted to the hospital.
So just so I understand, so the patients you're helping, you hope to help, currently they're in the hospital just receiving medication. There's no medical device intervention at the moment. They're just lying in a bed. Everyone's hoping they're getting better and responding to the drugs.
Yeah, that's correct. There's been other attempts at using other devices, things like ultrafiltration, balloon pumps, but they have not been shown to be effective in these patients.
So where is Aortix in your development now? You're currently enrolling in a clinical trial, correct? Where are we in the trial process? You've already completed a few, but talk about DRAIN-HF.
Yeah, so we completed our pilot study about a year and a half ago, which gave us great results in a small number of patients. So that really provided us the data and the confidence that we could move to a pivotal trial for FDA approval, and that's the DRAIN-HF study. And so for DRAIN-HF, we have began enrolling patients recently and are looking to get enrollment in a study design that randomizes patients one-to-one between getting an Aortix pump or continuing on with the best standard of care therapy that's available. And we'll enroll a total of 134 patients for the endpoint, which is a combination of looking at acute decongestion in the hospital, as well as 30-day rehospitalization for heart failure and mortality. And we look to complete enrollment sometime around the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter of 2025, and then submit our PMA for FDA approval sometime before the end of that year.
So Procyrion was founded in 2005, if I have it correct?
That's right. Yeah, 2005. Yeah.
Has it been working on Aortix the entire time, or have there been a few iterations or different focuses over that time?
Yeah, it's been one program. I'd say the founder of the company, Reynolds Delgado, is a heart failure cardiologist out of Texas Heart. He came up with the initial focus and the idea for a miniaturized pump that could treat heart failure patients. I'd say that between the founding on paper and really 2011, when the first real funding happened, it was in an incubator also now called Fain Studio. And so started there and really was not having a lot of resources, a lot of people that are looking at it, but we're able to get to a good initial prototype. And then between, say, 2011 and 2018, when I joined the company, there was a lot of engineering work done to try to bring the device to a final design. But just to give you an idea, and I think this is true with a lot of, especially implantable medical technology, and especially medical technology that's going to be in the blood circulation and have blood contact, is that to have a very miniaturized pump and have it not only do the job that you want it to do, but also to have it be robust. and to be durable and not throw off clots that could cause complications. It's a very tough engineering problem. And when I joined the company, they had a good basic design, which would have the physiologic effect, but was not able to be durable. And so we took a step back, brought in some other thinking involved, had some parallel paths going on, did a lot of computer modeling, and were able to get to a really robust final design about a year later. And since that time, whether we've been in animals or in patients, we've had really great results in terms of the pump's function and intended use.
How long would the pump remain in someone? Could it be days or weeks or however long it
great
takes?
question.
What's it built for?
Yeah, so right now we're indicated for up to 7 days of therapy. What we saw in our pilot study was on average, the patients could be decongested. And in that pilot study, on average, patients took off about 11 liters of excess fluid, which, put it in perspective, that's almost, that's 24, 25 pounds of excess fluid on average.
Wow.
Over 4 days. We're indicated up to 7 days. For other long-term sort of home ambulatory indications for heart failure patients, we'd look to go much longer than that. And we've had the pump in animals for about 5 months, running well and coming out looking just like it did when it went in.
And you said this earlier, but when do you intend to file for the PMA?
Right now, we're targeting end of 2025.
Okay. So do you have a sense of when? I mean, no one knows for sure, but when would you tell someone you would anticipate a commercial launch? Promising that I won't hold you to it, but what are you building around?
From that stage, I'd say the typical timeline for regulatory approval would be in the sort of 12 to 15 month timeframe after that.
Yeah. This is a challenging medical device area for design and approval and clinical trials. I mean, medical device companies, as a rule, have longer lives than other startups. This is a particularly long life. What have been the unique challenges for Procyrion?
I'd call out 2 challenges. One is, again, getting a design and the complexities associated with that to have a pump that not only works, but at that small size, but really having it be robust and durable. The other big challenge for us was we were just about to start just started our pilot study and COVID hit. So
sure.
I'd say the COVID impact overall was a big part in the timeline that between then and now.
I suppose it's a sign of progress that I didn't even occur to me to ask how did COVID impact, but clearly it would be a huge impact for sure. So, and I want to ask about the financing in a moment. You've raised, I think, 2 rounds since you've joined, but I'm seeing on your website that you secured Medicare payment codes. Is this for clinical trials? Do you have the codes for that? Or how does one get clinical codes without having a product approved?
Yeah, so we basically were looking to get not only for codes in place for reimbursement during the clinical trials, but also to have those codes in place in anticipation of commercial launch. And so one of the things that we were fortunate was that Impella was well established and had codes that would have been suitable for us as well, except for one of the characters in the code specifies the anatomic location. And so they had codes that were specific for in the heart. And so we applied for codes that were specific for being in the aorta. So we ran that process through the typical CMS process and had those codes approved this past August.
So just reading through your releases, so you joined in 2018. You were named Most Innovative Heart Pump Technology at the Global Healthcare and Pharmaceutical Awards in that year. And then you were able to raise your $30 million Series D and then got FDA Breakthrough Device Designation. So you were rolling, and you're right, COVID certainly slowed the roll a bit. Talk about your current financing. You raised $57 million. I actually wasn't aware of the group of, is it Fain? You said? The studios, Fain Studios. And I wanted to learn a little bit about them. But you also drew a lot from, according to your release, from family funds. So talk a bit, if you would, just about the financing process. Again, you had a lot of boxes checked. You're in a big market. You're moving forward. What was the process like? I would think you'd be drawing some attention from investors.
Yeah. So as you said, I mean, we raised a round after we had our design freeze in 2019 for $30 million. And that round was intended to get us through our pilot study, continued development work, and get us to the point where we could be submitting for our IDE for the DRAIN-HF study. So we had to stretch those funds a lot, especially because of COVID, and then getting into the current fundraising environment today, which is very tough. Things are high interest rates. The number of deals being done gone down quite a bit, and venture capital firms had to support their own portfolio companies, funding them. So yeah, it was a much more difficult process to raise the money that we did. And what we wanted to do was raise enough capital so that we could be funded all the way through the completion of the DRAIN-HF pivotal trial and through to the work that happens after that to be able to be in a position to submit our PMA application to FDA. So it was a lot of conversations. We've had a strong existing base of investors. So not only Fain, which is an interesting group that has not only their investment arm, but also runs the Fain Studio, the accelerator incubator that the technology originally came out of. We also had good support from the lead in our previous round, Bluebird, and also from a strategic investor that's been an investor in the company for a number of years. And so having all of that support and then going out again, really leveraging Fain's relationships, especially with a number of family offices, really was the thing that was able to drive this to a successful conclusion.
The family funds, how did you access that market? It's not an easy market to necessarily get around, and this is a big financing for family funds to kind of be part of. How were you able to assemble that syndicate?
Yeah, really, the Fain partners really took the lead on that. Made the introductions, had the relationships to be able to bring those folks in, and then had good discussions. People were excited about the market. And, I would say even on the venture capital side, even when people decided that they weren't going to be able to invest in Procyrion, typically the response was that they really saw the opportunity, they liked the technology, but it was really their situation and the current environment, and generally that they would say this company definitely deserves to be funded. It's just we're not in a position to do that today.
And the strategic, I know it's undisclosed. Does it rhyme with Johnson & Johnson? Can you say?
Yeah, not gonna mention that, but yeah,
not gonna answer that question. Yeah. Okay, I understand. Yeah. And I'm being a wise guy, so I just threw that one out there. That was no leading by the podcast guest. So, all right, well, it's obviously one of those big medtech stories. I mean, a huge problem, great technology. You got the financing to get you farther. So what kind of news do you anticipate we'll be seeing? What would you like us to be talking about in a year or so from now? Where do you hope to be? Yeah,
I mean, it's an easy answer to that question. That is, hope to be fully enrolled in our pivotal trial with great results and working our way to prepare the application to FDA.
Eric, it's a pleasure to talk to you and to hear Procyrion's story. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me, Tom.
All right, well, that is a wrap. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Device Talks Weekly Podcast. Hope you enjoyed our conversations. Please do us a favor. If you haven't already subscribed to the Device Talks Podcast Network, please do. You'll get future episodes of this and our other 8 podcasts. Well, not all of them, but you'll get a lot of episodes centered around the medical device industry. Just go to any podcast player and subscribe to the Device Talks Podcast Network. If you want to see our full inventory of podcasts, go to devicetalks.com and find the podcast tab. Once again, join us at Device Talks Boston on May 1st and 2nd. Go to boston.devicetalks.com to register for that. It's going to be a great 2 days of discussions and networking, some really cool add-ons we're doing this year, and I think you'll certainly enjoy it. And also, of course, go to devicetalks.com to register for our upcoming Device Talks Tuesdays episode. Finally, please do spread the word about Device Talks. Share this episode of the Device Talks Weekly Podcast. Let folks know you're listening. Give us a ranking on your podcast player. I'm told it helps to folks to find the episode, and certainly we like hearing what you have to say in that regard. But of course, finally, and maybe most importantly, I think connect with me on LinkedIn. Connect with Chris Newmarker, as in a Newmarker on LinkedIn. We want to be part of your network. We want to be part of your conversations, and we want to, I hope, someday tell your story. So find us both on LinkedIn, and of course, connect with Device Talks and Mass Device. And final thing, one more ask, if you could subscribe to our Device Talks YouTube channel. We're starting to put some content up there as well. So lots going on. We're doing everything we can to get you the best medtech news and insights. that we can gather. So I hope you'll join us in all of those places. Thanks again for being part of the Device Talks weekly podcast. As I mentioned at the top, I don't think we'll have an episode next week because I'm going to see the Boilermakers take on the Minnesota Golden Gophers. But if I'm able to put something together, I will. Otherwise, I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, everybody.